lost my full coffee on the way up the mountain. That is like so wrong. So wrong. I cannot have a coffee. No coffee. Gotta be kidding me. Well, maybe this will be the last day. Here we go. Up the mountain farther I go. Okay, I don't know if you can tell or not, but it is so windy. It is absolutely ridiculous. Trees are snapping off and hitting the ground all over the place. So I parked my truck in just on the edge of a logged off block of land, just out of reach of any deadfall so I don't get squished. And I'm gonna stretch out in the back of the pickup here. Not the back, but my back, I've got the four-door truck. I'm stretched out in the back, hiding. I'm gonna read some emails. What better thing to do, right? What else could I do? Now, listen to this. This is from a message on social media. And listen to this, and I hope I pronounce the name correctly. This is from Quentin Both. B-O-T-H-E. Hope I didn't butcher your last name, Quentin. Princeton, BC, British Columbia, Canada. Sterling Creek Logging Road around 3:30 in the morning. 2 logging trucks about half a kilometer ahead of me. It was very dusty, being late summer, and I was in a pickup truck. I was cresting the hill where I could barely see the logging truck's taillights. Then I was maybe 300 yards, give or take. By then, I was maybe 300 yards, give or take. I thought I seen something that crossed the road behind the last truck and me. As I got closer, something rolled down on the high side of the bank into the ditch. By then I was about 15 to 20 feet from what I thought was a bear cub. This little thing come out of the ditch all confused looking at the headlights of the pickup truck. It was on all 4 legs at the time. I just stared looking at it and thinking, that's a weird looking bear cub. And here's where it gets strange. The little guy gets up on 2 legs and starts walking a couple of feet, looking from one side of the road to the other side from where he rolled down. I got a good look at it. The ears were nothing of any bear cub. Its nose was close to the face like a human's. It wasn't all that hairy, you could see the skin through the hair. I shut the truck off and opened the door and stood on the door jamb looking at it. You think that's strange, LOL? Listen to this effed up part of my story. Something came from the high side of the road, landed, grabbed the little guy, and jumped off to the bottom side into the dark. It was a massive, two-legged beast that had strength that no bear was capable of doing, never mind that it was on two legs. I'm 47 years old, born and raised in Princeton. I'm a hunter. I've killed lots of every four-legged animals in your area. In our area. Holy cow, listen to that wind out there. It is insanity. Sorry, guys. I tell everybody now that we are not the top of the food chain in the hill from what I experienced. All I can say is that if you think you're going to kill one of them, you're playing with something that's not going to lose. Call me a liar, call me crazy, it don't matter to me. I'm just letting others know. It's a rare occurrence that they're seen, and it's for a reason. Call me if you want. I've had other experiences in the past 30 years of logging in the Princeton area that are hard to explain. All right. Okay, Quentin, I'm pretty sure you probably still listen to the channel, right? Because that's a recent email. So I'll tell you what, if you can, start sometime now or whatever, figure out if you have a laptop or a computer at home, or actually you might even be able to use your phone. I forget, I think so. I did that with Nino, but Quentin, if you could, get the Zoom thing. Zoom, right? Download Zoom, the app, whatever you need. And when I get back from here, I'll give you a call, we'll if you want to, and we'll do a Zoom video, all right? And then I'll grill you with a whole bunch of questions. So I like listening to our loggers. And obviously we've ran in the same zones, right? We probably think a lot alike, and we'll have a lot to talk about. But I wouldn't mind picking your brain and hearing your description of that thing that hit the dirt and your other experiences and other people you know. Because I don't even have to ask you. I already know you know somebody who's seen these things and had weird experiences, right, Quentin? So do that, would you? I didn't have the Zoom thing at all, and then when I did that video with Nino, he just forwarded it to me, and it's easy. Download the Zoom thing, and then we crack it open, and then we can bullshit away and share with the people. All right, man? I want to hear what you know. I want to hear you seen. All right? I want to hear what your friends have seen and what they know as well. Okay? Especially because we're in each other's backyards, right? So let's do that when I get back. All right? So ahead of time, you can start to get that Zoom thing on your computer, and I'll get a hold of you when I get out. Thanks for sending that in, man. I really appreciate that. It's not that common. We get a description or a sighting of the little ones, right? It's funny, when I was trudging along I went on a massive hike this morning. Left at first, started hiking at first light in the dark a little bit, and I remember thinking, I don't know why, I was thinking about the babies, the little ones of these things, and people saying, they want to warn, or they want to be warned that humans are in the area because they may have young ones in the area, and they're concerned because of their young ones in the area. You know what? I've never heard of a human being harassing or capturing a young Sasquatch in my life, and I'm pretty certain that even if we wanted to catch one, we couldn't. So for me, I just have troubles accepting people's relaying or saying that these beings need to be very aware of our presence when they have young around, or they warn us when young are around. I just don't get it, because they outclass the living shit out of us. You know what I mean? I mean, if I was one of these people, one of these beings, and I was watching human beings, I would probably be thinking to myself, good God, are these things stupid? We're literally doing circles around them for generations, and they don't even know it. Do you know what I mean? Like they just don't need. They don't need to go do anything extraordinary to avoid us. We're too easy. were too easy. So it's just hard for me to accept the fact that some of the views that people say that, you know, they're protecting their young. They're giving you a warning because you're entering an area where their young are. Now, I just got a tough time with that one, man. You know? I got a tough time with that one. But anyway, I want to hear more from our logger friend who just emailed in. Now, who's next? Okay, here's another one. This is titled Strange Things. I've had some similar things happen to me before also years ago. I was bow hunting antelope on my private property in Wyoming in the middle of nowhere. The only one allowed on the property was me. I shot an antelope and watched the arrow pass clean through, up over a ridge, and down into a canyon, lost forever. I make my own custom arrows for my bow, so they're one of a kind. The next year, walking down the trail to where I shot the antelope the year before, laying on my path. My pathway is my arrow, laying across in perfect condition. This area is basically flat with foot-high grass and a few sage bushes here and there. You can see around you for miles. Had a similar thing happen to me while bow hunting in the high Sierras near Yosemite, in a wilderness area. People call me crazy too, and I don't care. I call things as they are, even when they're hard to I call things as they are, even when they're hard to understand. Good to know, and others have had the same kind of experiences. All right, there you go. Another one with an arrow. Thank God I'm not the only one. They must have a warm feeling towards archery and arrows. Maybe that means something. I don't know. But that sure is bizarre, isn't it? It sure is bizarre, man. Thanks for sending that in. All right, what do we got here? This is titled Sasquatch. Hi, you're doing a great job. Just have one thing to add. You're the only one that could, in this, looking for Sasquatch. Why, you're the only one capable with the necessary skills. Put one down. That sounds harsh, but the only way to put all this to an end... Sorry? Put one down. That sounds harsh, but the only way to put all this to an end of the bullshit stories. Only you can do it. Danny Mitchell. Danny Mitchell, Huff and Mitchell. Oh, Danny. Hate to be the messenger, buddy, but you're missing so much. You're missing so much. They're not bullshit stories, first off, although the odd person might email in for some attention, but they're not bullshit stories, Danny, all right? Excuse me. And you may need one put down for you, because for some unknown reason, you can't wrap your head around hundreds of thousands of eyewitnesses. Right? It's only you, buddy. You can't wrap your head around the eyewitness testimonies. For some unfortunate reason, there's a block. They're not allowing you to trust your fellow human being, your neighbor, your coworker, maybe even your family member, whatever it is, but you can't trust them. You can't trust these people. I don't know why. It's going to be your issue, but it doesn't mean somebody has to go blow the head off of a person, although they may be different than us, just to appease you. All right? The proof's in, man. The cat's out of the bag. Now we're learning about them. So, moving along. Read and shared and addressed. What else do we got? Who else do we got? Besides crazy, crazy wind. Holy shit, it's windy out there. Wow. I wouldn't want to be in the timber right now. You'd probably get conked out for sure. This is titled My Encounter. As an elementary school student in 1971, I saw Legend of Boggy Creek, and I later read Peter Burns' little paperback book on Bigfoot. The North Georgia mountains, especially the Appalachians, are rich with legends and strange stories about boogers. Parents and adults would say, "Don't be at night. That's when the booger bears come out." Or, "Don't go there, the boogers will get you." Problem was, nobody ever tell you what a booger was or how it looked, so we thought it was only a scary story. In the spring of '73, a game warden went missing overnight and was found on a rural road, walking the next morning by a passing car. This sounds familiar. He was exhausted and confused, with his clothes torn, and couldn't really remember what happened. It was later said that he claimed to have seen a tall, hairy creature with a big head and a face like a bull. This story was buzzing for about 2 weeks, and suddenly all talk of it went quiet. We think he either quit or the state relocated him. It was March '74 and I was 15. I didn't drink or smoke anything. I was a straight arrow football player and not the type to tell stories. About 8:30 p.m. I was riding in a car with 3 other guys, and the driver was about 2 years older than us. We were spotlighting deer, illegal, but not for the purpose of shooting one, just checking them out. We were going down the main road. It was barely paved and full of potholes. As we rolled along at about 10 to 15 miles per hour, we spotted a buck and 2 does up on a chest-high red clay bank with bushes and overgrowth partially blocking our view. This was at a four-way crossroads where the very narrow dirt/gravel right-hand road led off into a completely deserted forest with no houses. On the left was another dirt/gravel road with an old church on the corner. Further down this road were a couple of farms. A river runs down one side that is fed by Amicalola Falls, which is located at the head of the Appalachian Trail. Ironically, there's an area of the river known as the Devil's Elbow, where moonshiners, car thieves, pot growers, and hunters were alleged to have gone missing over the years. This is the same area where the game warden went missing. I was in the passenger rear seat and couldn't really see the deer. We stopped, and the guy in front of me got out with a spotlight and an old D-cell and shined the deer. It was apparent they had been running and were tired because they didn't haul ass when we lit them up. About 3 or 4 seconds after exiting the back seat, I heard a crack/pop, 45 degrees to my right in the forest. My friend who was sitting next to me heard it and said, "Oh shit, I bet that's a game warden." I said, "That's one noisy game warden." He then began urging the driver to get us out of there. About that time came some more noise, like something large moving through the woods. Instantly I thought bear, because a 500-pounder was killed in our area, but bears are known to be very quiet when walking. So I start saying, "Let's go," and the hairs start standing up on my arms and neck, and I began to feel sick with fear. About the same time, approximately 75 or 80 feet to my right, at a 15 to 20 degree angle, I watched a large, hulking figure cross the road from bank to bank in 3 forward-leaning large steps while swinging its arms. From the sound it was making, it appeared to be approaching the deer. And at that moment, they bolted out of there. Now let's pause for a moment, as I'm frozen with fear and it seems like time has slowed down. My friend to the left says, "What the hell was that?" And now we're both saying, let's go, and have one foot in the car. And then as I look up on top of the embankment, I see the outline of a figure move slowly to get behind a tree where its face/head was obscured. My friend with the spotlight starts slowly getting in the car, while me and the other dude dive in the back seat. At this time, my older and more stubborn friends pulls out a .22 caliber pistol and says, "Who are you? Talk to me or I'll shoot." Now we are screaming, "Let's go," as he again says, "Tell me who you are or I will shoot." I think my friend in front of me still has the light pointed at it over the door, even though he is now back in the car. At that instant, we hear a bang, bang, as the driver shoots up in the air. He immediately throws the pistol down and jumps in the car as we spin out of there sideways. Now I'm shaking all over so bad that my feet are actually tapping, and everybody but the driver is talking at once. I don't remember who asked first. I think the guy in front. They got a better look, but he said, "What did you see?" The driver silent as we drove until we found a closed gas station and pulled in. He got out and went to the drink machine and downed a Coke. Still wouldn't talk. So now my friend is driving us all home, and it's about 10 p.m., and we're planning to go back the next day to look around in daylight. We also agree to only tell our families, minus the part about the gunfire, of course. After we drop off my friend in the back, we are headed to my house. My friend in front says to the driver, "Hey man, what did you see?" Nothing but silence until we get to my house, where my friend in the front says, "You saw its face, didn't you?" He very quietly said, I sat there for a minute waiting for more, but it was obvious that he wasn't talking, and it was getting late on a school night. I then had to get out and walk up the long path to the dark backside of my house, which sat at the foot of a mountain. When I got inside, my mom noticed that there was something wrong, and her first question was, "Has somebody been drinking?" And that was all I needed. So, as I finally managed to tell my story, my mom replied, "It's probably the devil." But my dad, who grew up on a farm only a few miles from this incident, sat silent, looking at the TV. It was his older generation on both sides of the family who used the term booger. Growing up on a farm, he knew all too well about booger stories, and later said that he used to hear strange screaming sounds in the woods. They always blamed it on panthers, but they were all hunted and killed by the early 1900s. The few other people I shared this story with laughed and ridiculed me, so I shut my mouth until 1980. So the following day, we all head back, and our driver still doesn't want to talk. We get to the location and cannot find footprints, but do find broken branches and impressions in the ground. Then we get to the tree where its face was hidden. A prominent, crooked limb stuck out and bent upward. I could stand flat-footed and reach the limb with my arm almost extended, and that put the creature at about 7'10" or possibly more. We went back 2 times that night to look, stupid and heavily armed, but found nothing, thank God. About 2 months later, I was in church and saw a girl that lived on that same road but closer to the main highway. I told her what happened, and a very serious expression overtook her face. She informed me that it had ran across the road in front of her one night while coming home from a football game. She also said that her uncle saw it coming out of his chicken house about a year prior. I sat there silently thinking, "Oh God, why have you allowed such things to exist?" In 1980, a new subdivision was being built near our encounter. A story started circulating that the first resident of this subdivision came home one night to find his back door broken down and his kitchen ransacked. Nothing stolen, just a destroyed kitchen. I didn't know the man, but all the things he was related to my friend who drove the night of our encounter. I didn't know the man, but of all things he was related to my friend who drove the night of our encounter. Before church one morning, I again asked some 6 years later if he had seen his face that night. He nodded yes, and then looked away. My opinion is that the sight of it really scrambled his eggs, and he didn't want to deal with it. As far as I know, nothing ever came of the vandalized house incident, as that story died quickly, just like the game warden story. For some reason, I told my dad a story my very peculiar aunt told me at age 5 or 6 or so. She and my uncle lived in a house on top of a big hill at the foot of a mountain about 7 miles from our incident. She claimed that while rocking in her front porch one night, a large hairy man with a very ugly face came around the corner and stood motionless, looking at her, about 8 feet away. She told that she felt paralyzed with fear and could only cut her eyes to look at it. She was unable to call out to my uncle sitting in the living room behind, only feet away. She claimed that she closed her eyes very tight and began praying. And in a few seconds, she opened her eyes and it was gone. I remember her saying his face looked like it was hit by a hammer. I asked my dad if she was crazy, to which he replied, "Folks thought so." Being able to share this story is therapeutic. About an hour north of me, I correspond regularly with the owner and staff, and they say every week at least one person comes in to share a story. I was honored to have met both Scott Carpenter and Dave Plattis there. Oh, I missed a whole sentence. Thankfully, we now have a Bigfoot museum about an hour north of me. Okay, so a few years ago, the owner of that museum emailed me a few times. Sorry. I corresponded regularly with the owner and staff, and they say every week at least one person comes in to share a story. I was honored to have met both Scott Carpenter and David Plattis there. I hope my story wasn't too boring. I just wonder how many people from my area have even better stories to tell, but fear the ridicule. Thanks, Rick. Yeah, ridicule sucks, eh, Rick? The ridicule sucks. So many human beings are scared of the ridicule. It's amazing, isn't it? It sure is a funny trait that we've been given. A lot of us have been given. It's a common one. That drives your average human, drives them nuts to be ridiculed. It's frustrating. It's too bad, because it helps a lot of people with bad intentions get away with a lot of shit. They use it to their advantage in a way, right? But anyway, I know I read that before. I don't know how long ago, and there's literally thousands of new people here, so... And you guys know what happened a few months ago. My old phone notes got wiped, which screwed me right up for being on top of the new emails coming in. So you're going to have to go through the struggle with me a little bit, you guys, while we sift through them. Now, who's next? Roll out the window to cut out that annoying wind sound. Yeah. This is titled Educated. New Yorker, multiple experiences. Educated. In what world? Hi, Steve. I want to thank you for speaking about this topic and allowing so many of us to share our stories. What you've done and continue to do is important for all of us who've had experiences with Sasquatch or whatever else is hiding in the woods/forest. I apologize in advance for the long email. I just wanted to share my experiences with you. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. My name is David. My parents are from Puerto Rico. I live in New York City. I already don't fit the profile of people who tend to have these types of experiences. I play basketball in my yard or at the park. I have all of the New York City sports franchises at my disposal for entertainment, as well as countless restaurants and activities the city has to offer. When I want to go away, I head out to warm places. I'm not a hunter, nor a trapper, nor an outdoorsman. I've gone camping about 5 times and hiked about 8 times throughout the 43 years of my life. I'm an analyst in the medical field, and I live about an hour drive from the nearest mountain. What I'm trying to say is that although I love and admire the life you have with those beautiful mountain ranges, the views, and the wildlife around you, that's just not the environment I'm in, nor will probably ever be in. I'm also a man with deep convictions in my faith in God, and although I like to laugh and joke around, everyone knows that I'm a straight shooter, and that my word means something to me. I want to start out by saying that I've never seen a Bigfoot, but I've had experiences that I can't explain. A day doesn't go by that I don't think about my experiences. I've shared my experiences with people who know me well, even immediate family members, yet they look at me as if I'm trying to prank them. This has caused me not to share those experiences anymore. My experiences all began around 7 years ago. It wasn't until I began to research the topic online that I realized that other people had similar experiences. I've heard a wood knock. I've had a rock thrown at me on 2 separate occasions on the same trail. I've seen 5 impressions in the snow that I can't explain. I've seen the tree structures. I've heard grunts. I've seen tree snaps. I heard what sounds like monkey chatter, and I found a footprint. For all these experiences, I was not alone. I included each of my experiences in this email. Number 1, my brother-in-law, who has been in the military for over 20 years, had come up from North Carolina and wanted to go hiking, so we went. My brother is with us as well. We decided that hiking a trail was not as fun as hiking straight through the bush and climbing rocks, so that's what we did. We've been climbing and hiking for about 90 minutes. when we decided to take a much-needed break at a small ravine. We sat on some rocks to eat our snacks and to enjoy how alive the surrounding was. We could hear birds chirping, chipmunks running, and other animals. And all of a sudden, the woods became silent. I didn't realize it until my brother mentioned it. It felt as if someone muted the volume of the woods. My brother said, "You hear that?" And we said, "No." He said he heard a tree snap. My brother-in-law climbed the rocks for about 75 yards in the direction my brother said the tree snap came from, but he didn't see anything. He came back. We packed our bags and continued climbing. We got to the top of the mountain and sat to eat our lunch. I told my brother that we should hit a tree because in that show, quote, Not Finding Bigfoot, they say that Bigfoot hits trees to communicate. My brother took 2 to 3 swings at a tree with a piece of wood, but nothing happened immediately. We looked at each other as to suggest, well, we tried. About a minute later, we heard from afar what sounded like someone hitting a tree just as we did. It was just one hit. We looked at each other shocked and surprised. We hit the tree several more times, but never got another hit back. I told my brother and brother-in-law that I was curious as to why whoever hit the tree only hit it once, and that if I were hitting the tree, I would hit several times just to mess around with whoever was also hitting a tree. I forgot to mention that near the top of the mountain, we could see trees just snapped about 30 feet off the trail. But the part that had been broken off was not around. We also found a huge pile of branches about 150 yards off the trail. We were curious, but not enough to go investigate. Number 2. Sometime after my first experience, my sister and her husband came up to New York City again and wanted to go hiking. So we went to the same location as my first experience. It's the closest place to go hiking, and it's pretty fun. After reaching the top of the mountain, we took a trail behind the mountain that we had wanted to hike before. While on that trail, we began to notice trees placed together in the form of right triangles. One tree standing and another leaning on it. By this time, I had already begun doing some research on Bigfoot and had come across stories of tree structures. They had mentioned that if the root of the tree leaning is not found under the tree, then someone or something placed it there. I decided to put this into practice. So, on one of the structures I decided to try and prove this theory. There was a right triangle structure near some rocks that amounted to about 10 feet in height. I removed the foliage around the base of the leaning tree and didn't see the root of the tree. I picked up the leaning tree at the base to see if I could see some sign of its root, but the ground was somewhat smooth. There was no tree root within 3 to 4 feet around the base of that leaning tree. While I was standing there looking at the structure and speaking to my family, a rock was thrown in my direction. At the rocks, directly behind me, there was a loud pop. Then the trickling down of the rock falling came afterwards. I ran without hesitation to my family, who were about 20 to 30 feet away from me. We looked around and didn't see anything. My sister was getting a little scared, so we continued. We continued to see a lot of right triangle structures, but kept hiking. At one point, we walked into an open field on the dark side of the mountain, and what struck us odd was that there was one right triangle tree structure about 25 feet tall. There were no other trees near it. That's what made it stand out. So, of course, I walked to it to see if the root was directly below it. There was not one tree root beneath that leaning tree. The leaning tree was about 1.5 foot in diameter and about the height of a 3-story house. I began to get a little scared, but I didn't mention it. We had decided to leave and came across the end of a ravine. The sun was beginning to come down. It was a little dark already. While we're by the end of the ravine, we begin to hear grunts coming from each side of the ravine, but from the top of the hills or rocks. We don't have the experience to identify the grunts, but whenever a grunt was made from one side, another grunt came from the other side. This happened 4 or 5 times. We didn't know what to make of it. My sister was scared, so we immediately left and hiked straight to the parking lot. Number 3, about 18 months later, my brother and I decided to take a couple of my colleagues hiking, along with other family members. It was just a day of the guys hanging out together. We decided to go out to the same place. I'm drawn to that place because of the experiences I've had. It was winter, and it was snowing, and there was 6 inches to about 2 feet of snow in different parts of the trail. About 3 hours in, as we approached a bend on the trail, on the back side of the mountain, my nephew yelled, "Hey guys, what's this?" Just so you know, no one was on the trail. The snow was smooth throughout the 6 or 7 hour hike. We were the first to step on the snow. When we approached the bend, there was what seemed to be 5 impressions in the snow about 17 inches long and 8 inches wide. The first 3 impressions were about 8 feet apart, and the next 2 about 3 or 4 feet apart. We were puzzled because there were no other impressions on the trail. There were also no drag marks on the snow. It seemed as if there were 5 big rocks. It seemed as if there were 5 big rocks on the ground. It snowed about 6 inches around them, and someone just lifted them off the ground. Another rare thing that occurred was that I attempted to take pictures of those impressions, but my camera wouldn't work. I've been taking photos throughout the entire hike, but my camera malfunctioned when trying to take pictures of these impressions. Later on, I saw an interview with Les Stroud where he said that there have been reports of people who experienced malfunctions with their cameras when there had been a Bigfoot nearby. I still have the photos I attempted to take. In the sequence of images, you can see images of us prior to seeing the impressions. 5 black consecutive images, and then more images as the hike continued. I always stay at the end of the group when we've gone hiking so that I can take photos of us. A few minutes after continuing the hike, while I was with my colleagues at the back of the group, a rock was thrown at us. We both turned in the direction of the loud pop we heard and heard as the rock trickled down as it fell. We both looked around but couldn't see anything or anyone. And this was the same trail where 18 months before a rock was thrown in my direction while I was looking at a right triangle tree structure. The last thing we experienced on this hike was a tree about 2 feet in diameter laying on the ground that seemed to be used as a shelter. Anyone could have used this as a shelter. But what struck us strange was that we couldn't find the root. We looked for a couple of minutes, and then we found roots in the ground around the same size of the tree. Oh, hold on. Sorry, I just lost my spot. In the ground around the same size of the tree, but it was about 30 to 40 feet away. I don't know what caused the tree to be that far away from its root. We headed back to the parking lot and decided that hiking in the snow is not as fun as we thought. Number 4, 2 years ago, my brother and I decided to take the boys hiking to the same area during the summer. This time, since my curiosity was so high about this place, I decided to purchase a deer collar. With this, I would be able to mimic the call of a buck, fawn, and a doe. My wife thought I was nuts. I didn't use it in the hike until we got to the back side of the mountain, where I've had all my experiences thus far. I decided to make the sound of a fawn in distress every 5 to 10 minutes of the hike. After about 40 minutes of doing so, my nephew asked us, "Did you hear that?" We didn't know what he was talking about, and as we asked questions, he told us to be quiet and listen. Initially, we didn't hear anything for a few seconds, when out of nowhere, we heard what sounded like an odd monkey chatter. We think it was 2 because after one would speak, another would respond. We heard like 3 different chatters, all 3 ranging about 10 seconds long, with about a 30-second pause in between. We could not believe what was happening. My son and other nephew began to get scared. So after the chatter had ended, we just got out of there. About 5 minutes later, a black bear appeared on the side of the trail about 100 yards away. So we began to yell as loud as we could, and then the bear ran off. After seeing the bear, we were very cautious and headed down the trail straight to the car. My brother and I looked at each other and said, "Well, I guess the deer collar worked because we seemed to get a bear to us and whatever else was chattering." My nephew was able to record some of the chatter on his cell phone. Monkeys aren't native to New York State, and for that matter, North America, unless someone released monkeys in the woods. We should never come across one out in nature. And number 5. 4 to 5 years ago, I decided to take my family camping for Labor Day weekend. We made it to the campsite in the early morning, and shortly after setting up and cooking, it began to pour. That evening sucked. 2 kids, 10 years old, stuck in a tent for the rest of the entire evening and night. It rained all night. By morning, it was humid and sunny. We were excited to be there, make breakfast, and go on a short hike around the lake. After breakfast, we headed out for the hike. Soil was soft because of the rain and muddy in other spots, but we were having a great time. We came across an opening on the trail that was about 80 wide before it continued into the trees. I saw a small turtle and the kids went crazy with it. While my wife and kids were admiring the turtle, I was overcome with the strange feeling that someone was watching. Towards the end of the opening, adjacent to the trail, the grass was like 7 feet tall. Maybe it wasn't grass, but how would I know? It was just green, tall, and it looked like grass. I kept looking in that direction, but I couldn't see anything. And every time I looked in that direction, I felt that strange feeling of someone watching me. I didn't tell my family, and we moved on from the turtle. Within a few minutes on the trail, at the side of the trail, I found a footprint. I could not believe it. The heel impression was visible. The toes spread out wide was visible. It was an actual print. My wife kept denying that it was a print, but it was so clear to me. My wife began to get scared and was rushing me to keep moving. Because she didn't think it was a print, right? Sorry, I had to say that. The kids saw the print and they noticed that my wife was scared. The weird thing is that till this day, my wife still denies that she was scared, but the kids and I remember her being pretty scared and rushing us out of there. I took a picture of the print along with my foot next to it for size comparison. I'm a size 9, so I would say it was at least a size 11 or 12. The foot was much wider than mine. With all of my experiences, I can only conclude that it was caused by humans or by something that is out there. There's something out there that they're not telling us. And there are enough of us who know that something exists out there. Thanks for the amazing stories you share, brother. I love your videos. Your platform is important. Don't stop and keep up the awesome work. God bless. David Lisojo. David, appreciate you, man. Appreciate you emailing in. Now, I don't know if you have that recording of the chatter, but I'll guarantee you a bunch of people that are listening to your email are probably screaming the same thing. Send in the chatter, send in the recording, right? So if you ever do feel like sending that in and you want to share it with all the people here, I'll share it. I'll share it. Yeah, it's endless. And it doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter what nationality you are, what you do for a living. If you're a hunter, if you don't go in the woods, if you're a city person, it doesn't matter. Every single human being gets the same flavor of experience, right? The same patterns. The same patterns show up. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what nationality you are. It just doesn't. Nothing matters. Human beings. That's all we are. And we're equal, and we get treated equally from these beings, right? So far, we do, don't we? But anyway, I'm going to carry on. It's getting later. The wind's starting to finally slow down. I might have to go look for an elk or eat some food or something. But anyway, I'll be back again later. There's so many people waiting to be heard.